Time to put on your mystery hat because we've got a brand new sighting of a UFO, the kind that we're starting to see a lot more of these days. In fact, this may just be the Honda Civic of interplanetary travel, flying Tic Tacs. Tonight, we have another Tic Tac show, courtesy of investigative journalist Jeremy Corbell and the co-host of his podcast, George Knapp. They got their hands on some video from a U.S. warship off the coast of Southern California. What you're about to see happened back in Feb of 2023. A witness describes what he saw.
But when we start talking about all of the objects, all four objects, and what we witnessed was all four of them, all in synchronous, jetting off into the abyss. All four, all timed together, and all left. And we were like, holy shit. And they were all, maybe the second they left, maybe 3-4 seconds pass, I run to my station and I look at my radar and they're all gone. They're all off radar. And I was like, that's it. They all zoomed off. But it's clear that they're in communication with one another and synchronized, like 3, 2, 1 countdown, let's all go.
This Tic Tac had no typical propulsion, no exhaust, no wings, no tail, no rotors, the kinds of things that we all use to get around. It reminded me actually of the first reported Tic Tac sighting back in 2004. That one was also off the coast of Southern California, and it was caught on video by U.S. Navy pilots. So what does it all mean? Ben Hansen always has the answers. He is the host of UFO Witness on Discovery Plus, kind enough to be with us tonight. Hey, Ben, thanks for doing this. Okay, I'm starting to see a lot of Tic Tacs. Is it time to worry?
Well, Ashley, they've never left. You know, we've been studying this area off of Catalina Island, San Clemente. It's, you know, Southern California. There's a very deep channel that goes between the islands and the mainland. And as you said, back in 2004, this is where that Tic Tac video was filmed and where they were seeing these objects regularly. So in this particular case, you couldn't really ask for anything better. You have eyewitnesses who visually saw it coming up out of the water, by the way, and then recorded it with thermal camera. And also, you know, you have these sensors that were on radar that were able to pick it up.
It's hard to see in the video, but the witness talked about somewhere around 4 of these guys flying in formation. I'm only able to really see one, and I'm not sure the viewers can see better than I do, but talk to me about this business about formation. I'm not sure we've seen multiple Tic Tacs before.
So if you remember way back with the Nimitz case, they had been seeing multiple objects show up on radar, and then they would instantaneously show up maybe 60 miles away and somewhere else. So a lot of these do involve multiple objects. In this particular video, which they're still looking at, I can maybe make out 2. This is not the raw footage, by the way. This comes from, I believe, one of their smartphones as they were recording the screen. So we're not seeing the whole footage. That hasn't been released yet. But remembering that they visually saw this, and then when they go back out to the bridge to look for it, they watched at least 4 of these move away in synchronous fashion instantaneously, just disappeared.
So you mentioned the Nimitz. There's this fighter, this warship as well, this incident. There's the U.S. Navy pilots who were flying a jet when they saw their Tic Tac. Seems like the Tic Tacs are around a lot of our military assets, which makes me start to wonder, is this really otherworldly, or is this just really sophisticated potential spycraft of another nation?
And the question always is, you know, that's a scary thought as well, because this is not what we call next generation technology. It's not something that we could maybe realistically achieve in the next, you know, 10, 20 years. When you can instantaneously disappear and reappear 60 miles away, I mean, that's really, in my opinion, beyond what we have available. And also the Tic Tac shape, we're seeing a lot of that, but in this area too, we've got spheres. I've got reports that, you know, boat operators have had what looks like a city of light. I mean, a whole city coming up from underneath them, everything lit up around them like daylight. And that jets have possibly been scrambled to intercept and try to find out what's going on under the water. So this is a hotspot location. It's not just isolated to the West Coast, but the Tic Tac shape does seem to be something that is reoccurring often.
Can't believe you just said whole cities underwater. I am not going to sleep tonight, Ben Hansen, thanks to you, Friday.
All right, take a look at this next video. Could this really be a mass UFO sighting over a military base in California? Videos and photos put out by the podcast Weaponized capture what witnesses say they saw in April 2021. They described seeing a triangular formation of lights hovering above the Marine Corps base. Joining us now is Jeremy Corbell, investigative journalist and co-host of the podcast Weaponized. All right, you've been studying this footage for quite some time. It's from an incident 2 years ago. Why are we just seeing it now?
Right, because it takes a while to do these types of investigations. You need to find witnesses, as many photos and videos that you can. Upon looking at it the first time, when I got the tip that something unusual happened that night, it was just inky darkness and lights in the sky. I immediately thought it was flares. It's something you see all the time. However, over the course of this investigation, I have witnesses, direct eyewitnesses, come forward to me saying, we saw the body of a craft. And in fact, they sent low light photos, which shows an outline. So I started to listen, and my mentor in journalism, George Knapp, and I, we dug into it. And over that time, we've been able to collect just dozens of videos and images and eyewitness testimony. And really, this is an open case. We're trying to figure out what it is that people saw at 29 Palms military base.
So we're looking at these videos and photographs right now. Where did these come from?
Well, these are from Marines. These are from direct eyewitnesses on the base, which is almost, 1,000 square miles. It's a large base, but at Camp Wilson, a lot of people took photos and sent them in to me. I guess I'm the go-to guy.
Now, what about the theory that we're looking at flares from some sort of military training exercise? I'd heard that sort of thrown out there.
That's right. We would need that substantiated. However, you've got a number of Marines saying that we saw a craft. These are trained observers. And if they saw the body and you're seeing that in the low light images, it's worthy of investigation. If somebody makes a claim, then they need to substantiate that claim. My claim is I'm reporting the news. This is what people have told me, and I have so many witnesses on record.
And is the Department of Defense investigating this? Do you know?
Well, I'm sure they are now. Whenever George Knapp and I release something on the Weaponized podcast, you can be sure the Department of Defense is now investigating this.
Yeah, because they're taking these things more seriously. A lot of Navy pilots for years have been saying, I saw something up there, and I even took pictures of it and felt like nobody listened to them. They're listening now.
All right, if you're interested in spotting a UFO, you might want to check out Lincoln County, Nevada, home to the secretive Area 51 Air Force Base. Probably no surprise there. According to a new report, the county has the highest rate of UFO sightings per capita in the U.S. Reported sightings are on the rise amid recent government acknowledgement of UFOs or UAPs as potential threats. The latest research estimates only around 5% or less of people who witness unusual aerial phenomenon, though, actually are filing a report. Christian Stepien is the Chief Technology Officer of the National UFO Reporting Center. Thank you for being here. If people see something, why aren't they reporting it?
I think there's a number of reasons people don't report things. One, certainly in the past, there's been a stigma associated with seeing UFOs and reporting them. There's been certainly an attempt by the government over the years to kind of explain away sightings, make people think they might have psychological issues, things like that, especially with the military and pilots. It was very dangerous for people to come forward and report UFOs because it could affect their career. And as far as the general public goes, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that people simply aren't aware of where to go to report things. So the more that we can promote and make widely known agencies such as ourselves and MUFON where people can report UFOs, the more reports we'll get. I think also people tend to get busy. They tend to just not have time. They're living busy lives and they just don't get around to reporting. What I've found in my own personal life is that if you go talk to your neighbors, your friends, you're almost certainly bound to find people who have seen UFOs, but haven't reported them. And they'll tell you stories about things that they've seen in the sky and how amazing they were. And generally, they're just very sincere and very incredulous at what they saw, because these phenomenon are so mysterious and so impressive to see if you're lucky enough to witness one.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen shooting stars. I don't know that I've ever seen something I would consider a UFO, but maybe something catches your attention. Has the stigma dropped with these congressional hearings, do you think? Are you starting to see more reporting?
Yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, when the congressional hearings came on, we saw a huge spike in reports coming into the center, which we were extremely grateful for. I think, there's so much out there, it's becoming impossible to deny what's going on. So, things like the congressional hearing, I think the government is finally starting to say, yeah, there's something strange going on, and at least they're to the point where they're saying they can't explain it. In the past, they were always trying to explain everything away as some weather phenomenon or a misidentification of Venus, things that clearly could not possibly have caused what people saw. And there are so many witnesses that are credible, trained aviation experts that know what they're looking at in the sky. We get a lot of reports from pilots, the military, people who certainly would know the difference between Venus and some sort of craft that's making right angle degree turns at Mach 5 and instantaneously. So, yeah.
Well, and I think part, Christian, of what leads to the skepticism is the idea of, little green men and, like alien aircraft hovering above your house. So how do you guys at the National UFO Reporting Center filter out the fakes and then deem something worth investigating or that we just can't explain?
Well, we've had a lot of experience in this. I mean, we've been collecting reports for 50 years. This is actually our 50th anniversary. The center was founded in 1974. So after you've looked at tens or thousands of UFO reports, you can pretty much tell when somebody's trying to pull the wool over your eyes. Of course, it's going to get more difficult, I think, with AI and things like that, when people are going to be able to start deep faking things. But it really is a minority. You'd be surprised at how few of those we get. The vast majority of reports that we get here at the center are, again, very sincere. People are just looking for someplace to tell their story, and almost out of a sense of duty feel that they need to report it. So.
And it's wide open space, right? So we take another look at the map, and I mentioned Lincoln County, Nevada, Area 51 gets the most spots. But what are some other hot spots in the country that people, if they're out looking for something unusual?
Well, first of all, I'd say anybody can see a UFO anywhere. They're reported all over the world, pretty consistently with where people are.
By now, many have seen UFO whistleblower David Grush go in front of Congress and tell the world his story.
Absolutely, based on interviewing over 40 witnesses over 4 years. I know the exact locations, and those locations were provided to the Inspector General and some of which to the intelligence committees. I actually had the people with the firsthand knowledge provide a protected disclosure to the Inspector General.
Grush is an Air Force veteran and former intelligence officer, and he received praise in many circles for being willing to come forward. But he also knew that he would become a target of public scorn as well. And this week, a news site called The Intercept put out a report detailing a drunken episode of Grush's in which police were involved, and details about Grush becoming suicidal. Grush, a combat veteran, has been open about his struggles with PTSD. Ross Coulthart, the journalist who initially interviewed Grush for NewsNation, has pushed back vehemently on the Intercept story in what he sees as a smear campaign. Last night, the reporter behind the Intercept story tweeted out that he'd been let go from the Intercept after 3 years. I want to bring in NewsNation's Brooke Schaefer. Brooke, this reporter has a history of pranks, and turns out this was another. He thought it was funny to tweet out that he'd been let go when he had not.
Yeah, that's right, Elizabeth. To clarify, that Intercept reporter was not fired. He was making a joke on his Twitter account, pushing people to subscribe to a new newsletter. But as this story about UFO mysteries continues to gain national attention, one organization says they've seen an increase in reports of possible sightings.
I saw something last night that I cannot explain.
An unexplained phenomena that's been happening for decades. That phone call from 1977, an Air Force pilot reporting a possible UFO.
Sometimes it looked like two yellow lights, and then sometimes it kind of came together as one.
And tonight, reports like that are soaring. The National UFO Reporting Center says their volume of possible UFO sightings have doubled in the last few weeks.
We get somewhere between 10 and 50 reports a day.
Peter Davenport is the director of the National UFO Reporting Center, a non-governmental, nonprofit corporation that collects reports of possible UFO sightings.
We're getting reports so fast that we almost can't handle them. We can't process them fast enough.
Those UFO reports boosted, Davenport said, by last month's out-of-this-world congressional hearing. Whistleblower David Grush, a former U.S. intelligence official, testified the U.S. is concealing a multi-decade program to collect and reverse engineer unidentified aerial phenomena of non-human origin.
Do you believe that our government is in possession of UAPs?
Absolutely, based on interviewing over 40 witnesses over 4 years.
The Pentagon has denied Grush's claims, but the hearing, which produced headlines around the world, further fueled those who believe they have spotted aliens in the sky. The National UFO Reporting Center says in the last few weeks, they've received a mix of reports from mysterious orange orbs to dramatic sightings of structured craft.
I'm not sure there are more sightings, but people are more willing to report it.
Since its founding in 1974, the National UFO Reporting Center says it's processed more than 170,000 reports with sightings in all 50 states, though the organization highlights it is not an investigative body, therefore it can't validate these reports. Elizabeth?
All right, Brooke Schaefer, thanks so much for that report tonight.
Plane sightings over Arizona has U.S. fighter jet pilots becoming increasingly worried of what they could be encountering midair. Just in the last few years, there were about 6 reports made to the FAA describing, quote, unmanned aerial systems flying over Arizona's most restricted airspace. Some of these flying objects were spotted as high as 36,000 feet and flying up to nearly 600 miles per hour. Arizona has over a handful of military bases across the state, including the state's Air National Guard. These latest reportings are having some ask the question, what's really out there? Here with us now is Alex Dietrich, former military officer with the U.S. Navy with 22 years of experience, pioneering as one of the nation's first female strike fighter pilots. First of all, Lieutenant Dietrich, thank you so much for your service.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Tell me your story. What made you speak out now?
Well, I haven't been withholding information or not speaking about this incident happened back in 2004, the Nimitz encounter, when we were conducting training exercises off the coast of San Diego. We reported it at the time. It was never classified because it is, a purely, truly unidentified encounter that we had. We don't know what it was, and we couldn't speculate at the time, and I won't speculate now. But ever since, there have been reports and investigations, and I'm certainly here to advocate today for a systematic reporting system to have the resources and the training and the mechanism so that when people do see something unusual, they have a way to report it, and that we have resources available, qualified teams to investigate and analyze and make sense of what we're seeing.
And Alex, more often than not, Lieutenant Dietrich, you all would discuss amongst yourselves, hey, did you see that? Yeah, I saw it too. And sometimes there was safety in others having seen or experienced the same thing.
Oh, please call me Alex. And sure, there's a stigma around the topic of UFOs, because of Hollywood and sci-fi, and we've made fun of it and snickered about these silly movies and books and shows that we watch. But really, if we see something in our airspace that we can't identify, we worry about national security. We worry about safety of flight. And, of course, all the scientists are going to say, we're curious and we should figure out what it is. And so, I'm hoping that by talking about it, it will reduce the stigma and people will be encouraged to share their stories with colleagues and, again, with officials who can actually do something about it.
And Alex, I'm glad that you pointed out the fact that you don't necessarily believe it's alien life form, but they're just objects you can't identify. Let's take a look at some of these. We're seeing everything that looks like a flying Tic Tac over Arizona. Describe some of these things that you saw while you were up there.
Right. So in November of 2004, my colleagues and I, we were in 2 aircraft with 4 air crew, 2 pilots and 2 weapons systems officers. And we saw visually what we describe as a Tic Tac because it looks like that little candy breath mint, sort of a matte white, oblong shape with no wings or smoke trail or anything that would indicate how it was turning or traveling in the way that it was. So I've heard other encounters described with different characteristics, and I wouldn't want to suggest that they are all related, that they have the same technology or the same origin. But what's important is that we have some standard template for debriefing, that we have some way to take in this information, to ingest it and make sense of it.
Absolutely.
And say, are these related?
And Alex, back when the DoD developed the B-52 bomber, people initially thought that was a flying object of some kind that they couldn't identify. Do you think this could also be some type of a system that's created that we just aren't aware of yet?
Sure. Well, I certainly hope that we have access to and control over this technology because and I'm referring to what I saw in 2004, at least, but I don't think it is because we wouldn't operate or we wouldn't test something in a range where we have a military exercise being conducted. We wouldn't put our blue forces at risk like that. So while I hope that, it is within our arsenal, I don't suspect that it is.
I love that. I'm glad that you made that distinction because even if it is something that we've created, we would not have flown and tested that object at the same time when you're doing training exercises. Lieutenant Dietrich, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Great, and thanks for taking this issue seriously.
Absolutely, and we'll continue to follow up on this, and we'll follow up with you again later. Thank you.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, how's it going? I'm John. Brian. Nice to meet you.
Brian, good to see you again, man.
Yeah.
You too, you too.
How you doing?
Hey, thanks for meeting up with us.
Absolutely. This case is just kind of exploding.
I met up with former FBI agent Ben Hansen, Navy veteran John Nelson, and NASA consultant Dr. Doug Buettner. We're in Fairfield County, Connecticut, investigating a series of UFO sightings.
Right now, we're heading over to talk with one of our primary witnesses. Her name is Diane.
Diane is one of several people who saw something unexplained in the sky near this reservoir close to Reading.
Hi, I'm John. Nice to meet you.
And this is Brian from NewsNation.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Thanks for talking to us.
Yeah, no problem.
So this is the community center where everything happened.
Yeah.
Diane works late nights cleaning the community center, and in 2022 saw something that still gives her chills.
Could you walk through it for us and tell kind of Brian what it was you witnessed?
Sure. I had, I do my usual stuff and, take the trash out, take recycle out. So I'm kind of back and forth in the building, and it happened to be toward the end of my shift, and I was bringing the garbage out, and it's back on the back deck of the building, and I just happened to notice a light in the sky, and I'm always a sky watcher, so I just was wondering, is it a plane or whatever? And the way that it was moving, I was like, there's no way that's a plane because it was, just moving too erratically.
Can you show us the area where you saw the objects?
Sure. Yeah.
Diane uses a laser to explain where she saw what she describes as several orbs.
So where was
the initial light came from this direction.
Okay.
And it was kind of moving back and forth here and there. And then when it came over to here, I noticed it was 2.
So it kind of wavered back and forth?
Yes, because when it was out so far, that's why I thought it was a plane, because I'm like watching it, I'm like, what is that? Trying to figure out what direction it's going, because that's not a usual direction for an airplane, I don't think, like around here.
So almost just to the right of this tree right here.
Yeah. Yeah, like where it was clear, because that's what I said. I'm like, oh my God, I can really see this thing, because I'm looking up, watching this thing just above my head, like.
You're watching it watch you.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
like I thought, like there. Oh, what is that down there?
Now,
you know,
it's
like
kind of hard to see because we have a ceiling of clouds right here, but you
Yeah.
see where that's reflecting on the top of the cloud?
Yes.
Do you by any, estimate or be able to say where it was higher or lower than that?
It was probably about that high, but a larger object.
Diane was so scared she called police and showed an officer pictures that have since been accidentally deleted when she reset her phone.
So it wasn't a 911 call, it was non-emergency, but they still generate notes about the caller. And this is what caught our eye. It said, caller states that she was closing up the community center. She was seeing strange lights above the trees that she described as UFO activity. The caller wished for an officer to be present while she walked to her car since she was freaked out.
Where are all the other flights? There were far more than this.
Hansen and his team analyzed air traffic and determined what Diane saw could not be a plane. And they received similar reports from another witness at a nearby elementary school.
There is no aircraft in the area. And even though I have it pulled up to the time the sighting was, if there was an aircraft, there's 5 minutes. Anything within 15 minutes of here would be shown on the screen right now.
It's all eerily similar to what police officer Robert Klein saw in the same area around the same time. He caught the bright light on camera after it flew away from him. This is what Officer Klein described to Ashley earlier this month.
There was a really strong light. It lit up the entire cab of my cruiser to the point where I was having a hard time driving because I really couldn't see it. I was blinded by it. It was a perfect sphere, and it almost looked like plasma moving constantly. And I was perplexed and confused at what I was looking at.
This reenactment video shows what Officer Klein says he saw. He was barely into the midnight shift when he says his patrol car was filled with a bright light. It changed colors and then zipped across the reservoir.
I've been doing this job for 25 years. I've seen my fair share of drones, meteors, and everything else. And I knew that this was something that I've never come across. It wasn't a drone, I can guarantee you that. And it was something I still to this day, I'm perplexed. And like I said, I was fairly close to this thing, 30 feet. I got a very close-up view of it. And I froze. I wasn't in fear. I just was really trying to understand what exactly I was looking at. And to this day, I'm just perplexed by it.
Millions around the globe, and maybe even some beyond, are celebrating World UFO Day by looking to the skies, hunting for anything out of the ordinary. Well, July 2nd commemorates the anniversary of 1947 Roswell UFO crash. Later, the Army came back and declared the object that fell was actually a scientific balloon. Now, some 75 years later, the government still claims they have no evidence of non-human intelligence, but the government's decades of stonewalling on UFOs has started to shift since NewsNation's bombshell interview with UFO whistleblower David Grush. Joining me now is Dr. Paul Thigpen, author of Extraterrestrial Intelligence and the Catholic Faith, joining us this morning. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Tim. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Dr. Thigpen, I do want to ask you this. How has the UFO conversation changed over, say, the last year, particularly since David Grush and his testimony before Congress?
There's so much we could talk about, but overall, I'll have some starters. First, I think more attention in the press, and that effort to cover the topic, of course, has been led by NewsNation. We're very grateful for that. Ross Coulthart's new NewsNation podcast, of course, is a reality check as part of that. Unfortunately, the so-called legacy media, on the other hand, continue to avoid the topic. But publications like The Debrief, The Hill, Liberation Times are offering some first-class reporting. Numerous social media outlets are now focused on the topic and exploring a wide array of specific concerns and different viewpoints. We've had highly credentialed figures come forward into the public UAP conversation, like Colonel Carl Nell, retired Rear Admiral Tim Gallaudet, who've been offering some startling statements about our engagement with this reality. Folks like Askapol with journalist Matt Laszlo is keeping tabs on Congress. They definitely need tabs. Speaking of Congress, I guess the great disappointment of the year was that the UAP Disclosure Act amendment proposed by Senators Schumer and Rounds for the 2024 National Defense Authorization Act was passed by the Senate, but then was drastically pared down and compromised by members of the House. But even so, there's a continuing push in Congress to seek transparency from the Department of Defense and the intelligence community, despite some pushback. The UAP caucus there, other members of Congress in both houses from both political parties are taking the lead with plans to push for new legislation this year, greater whistleblower protections, talk about more hearings.
And Dr. Thigpen, in your book, you've even suggested that aliens and angels are one and the same. Talk to me about your own maybe foundation in faith and how you came up with that conclusion.
Actually, what I say is that some of the sightings and encounters we had could be angelic or even demonic fallen angels, but really the main point of the book is that I think that would only be a portion of them. The kind of evidence that's accumulating these days in these encounters suggests something that would be different from angels or fallen angels, demons. So I'm a part of an effort these days, another one of the new developments, to encourage scholars in all kinds of fields, including religious studies, to begin looking more closely at the UAP studies field and to look at it in light of their own religious traditions. That's what I've tried to do with my book from the Catholic tradition, but I'm encouraging folks from other religious traditions to do the same.
Dr. Thigpen, you and I can agree that people are definitely much more interested now than they had been in the past, and I think that the growing attention can only help to bring light to the situation. After all, wasn't it Ezekiel who looked up into the sky and saw a wheel? So maybe he too saw some type of UFO or object there. Dr. Thigpen, thank you.